Wow, I'm so excited about today's Business Women Australia Q&A online with the wonderful Julia Spicer, Anne-Marie O'Callaghan and Laurie Arnold. My goodness, these ladies are absolute legends in agribusiness space in the rural and regional areas of Western Australia and the work that businesses are doing in those areas. So we'll be tapping into their insights. I'm so super excited about this and I've been very much looking forward to it. So thank you, ladies, for giving us your time. With Business Women Australia, we I'm going the wrong way there. I'm Lynn Hawkins, for those of you who don't know who I am. I'm a bit of a legend in the area too, because I'm always trying new things. And I make it, that whole thing about being perfectly imperfect, that's me. So if you've got any ideas about what you'd like to do with Business Women Australia, I would love to hear about it. You can contact me on lynn@businesswomenaustralia.com.au. But before we start, we acknowledge the country on which we are meeting today. And we're meeting from all around Australia. We've got, of course, Julia is in Goondiwindi. I'm on the land of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation in Western Australia, and I'd like to pay our respects wherever we might be, that we are meeting on sacred, sovereign, Indigenous land. It's been lived, danced and celebrated on for 60 to over 120,000 continuous years, and we pay our respects to all elders, past, present, and those who are emerging, and celebrate our Indigenous sisters in business. So the BWA vision, that's demonstrating a new way of being collaborative. So we're a national group. We work very much on co-creation and collaboration. Our whole program is designed around really raising the visibility of women and sharing their knowledge and expertise. And our mission is to really help each other to achieve our goals and dreams, building that network of influence and creating opportunities for business women in Australia. And we do that through 5 areas of development: leadership, business improvement, personal growth, influence, profile, and of course, connecting. And we build our business and everything that we do and the way that we collaborate on our shared values. We spent a lot of time when we first designed and developed Business Women Australia as a community. We thought about what are the values that we want to exhibit and that we want people to experience when they have anything to do with our community. And it's inclusion and diversity, being courageous, stepping up, having a go, experimenting. We don't expect people to be perfect, but we are looking for honesty, open-mindedness, being consciously caring, and of course, bringing to whatever challenges that we have some sense of positive energy and an optimism for the future, that we can make a difference. So if that sounds like something that you'd want to be a part of, we would love to see you. Community does make all the difference. And today, talking to women who have their roots very deeply in the rural, remote and regional areas of Australia, absolutely, totally embody what community is all about. So we're really excited to be actually connecting and making this a national community of business women. We could not do what we do without our national partners. Torrens University Australia have been fantastic. They've actually allowed us to award 200% scholarships. Last year, Kylie Clark from New South Wales won 100% scholarship for her MBA. And this year, we've been able to award to Irene Stanley, who's on the Gold Coast, 100% scholarship for her MBA. And we've had numerous mini scholarships as well for people who are doing anything from degrees, diplomas, postgrads. So we've got, I think, 6 recipients of our mini scholarships, which are 15% for those ladies. And look, Torrens are amazing. Catco Enterprises help us with all our digital marketing, Kathy Smith and her team. Solo Accounts, of course, do our invoicing and all our bookkeeping, Donna Vincent and her team. Anne-Marie Cross, our podcasting queen. Some of you have actually been interviewed on the BWA podcast show, and that's just awesome because it's another way of raising the visibility and sharing the messages of female leaders. Jessica Schubert from Intact Teams develops our Lead the Future program. And Fire Up Coaching, we've just partnered with to actually launch a accredited coach course. It's a Cert 4 and then goes on to a diploma. It's ICF accredited, and it's a great pathway for those of you who want to develop your coaching skills, or if you want to be launching a coaching business, it's a great pathway as well. And of course, Hawkins Marketing, that's my team in the background that help us a lot with our Google presence and our strategy. So if you are interested in becoming an accredited coach, you'll see on our website, there's a whole landing page on there that we've developed. There's an opportunity to book a call with the amazing Kathy McKenzie. She's a premium member of Businesswomen Australia, and this is her business. She has developed this amazing registered training organisation that is offering what we believe is a great pathway, because it is an ICF accredited course, and that's why we've joined forces with Kathy and Fire Up to produce something that's really going to be supporting people in the development of those skills. Members all get access to a whole range. I think there's 36 short courses that Torrens University have made available to us and our members for free. Thousands of dollars worth of 45 to 90-minute short courses. They are so awesome for refreshing your memory. Torrens University, typically everything's research and evidence-based. So these, I can't recommend them highly enough. They're really worth doing. I'm working my way through them myself just to make sure that I'm across all these amazing subjects. We have a lot going on. Every month I'm amazed at how much is happening in our collective. So we've got things from Rockingham and Mandurah in-person events in the West Coast to boardroom events in Perth and Melbourne. We've got a business lunch. And our Sydney panel, our Q&A panel coming up on the 31st of August, fingers crossed. We've already had to postpone that once, as we have with our business leaders lunch in Melbourne. This is the third crack at trying to do that. But if you are in those places, register, because we always push it online and catch up and have a bit of a deep dive into the subject matter, or a chat or a connection, whatever it might be, and push out till we can do it. I mean, we're becoming very, very nimble at changing our events around, but we always press ahead, and we're always happy to refund anything if the new dates don't work for people. Talk to me if you are interested in becoming a member. We are welcome and open-armed for any new members. All our online events are available for non-members. You can be considering membership for as long as you like. We are not going to hassle you out. You can register for all of them if you're still considering, or if you're not in a position to join as a financial member. We don't want you to feel that you can't access the information that you need to be successful. This is what we're about. We're not about generating hundreds and hundreds of thousands of members. We are really about arming women with what they need and access to female leaders, and being able to find out who those women are to help them be successful and be able to hear, their insights and their knowledge, like we are doing today. So without further ado, let me introduce to you our most amazing panel. I am so glad. I was super excited. I thought, I want Julia and Anne-Marie and Laurie to be on this panel together, because they come from 3 different and diverse areas. And I was so thrilled and delighted that all 3 of them were able to join us today. So it's sort of like, it was a dream come true for me. Anne-Marie is the Director of Value Creators and Strategy Matrix. And she's also a director of Here Business Wealth. So she's what we would call, I guess, a portfolio career executive. She's highly experienced in business consulting, stakeholder engagement. She's an entrepreneur in her own right. And she's worked with over 500 regional businesses. And that's why I thought she's pretty well credentialed to come onto this webinar today. I've worked in collaboration with Anne-Marie. I've seen her in action. She's absolutely phenomenal, and her expertise covers all sorts of things, from creating new ventures to strategy renewal, business model innovation, Indigenous business development, community consultation, and stakeholder engagement research and feasibility analysis. She's absolutely phenomenal. She's a powerhouse, and I'm so happy to have Anne-Marie here. Julia Spicer, I mean, she's so well known for the vibrancy that she brings to rural areas. She's really driven by her mission to actually put regional businesses on the map and connect them. She's a Gundawindi businesswoman. She has the business hub there, and then the house with all the creative collective and the spaces that the local business women can come together and showcase what their products and services are. And she's got a background in coaching, in strategic consulting, and the development of, and she has online courses. She's an absolute powerhouse. Her husband Tony and their menagerie of animals are quite a force to reckon with, and you will get a feel for the passion that she has. Anyone that I know that's had anything to do with Julia says that actually being in her world is life-changing, which is pretty amazing. Quite a few people have said that to me when I've seen that they've actually connected with this webinar. Even if they can't make it, they're like, oh my God. And Laurie Arnold, what a powerhouse. She's actually in Esperance in this very, very southern part of Western Australia. And she has had life-changing experience through personal development. She's got a background with CSBP. She's been got an amazing career as a sales executive, a very successful woman in that role, dealing with local businesses, farms, agribusiness, but she's also an executive and a leadership and a life coach. So Laurie is, she's just going through this amazing growth in her own right, and she really gets what it is from an individual level, as well as from a sales and business development level, what we need to be looking at in terms of stepping up and growing. So that's why I wanted to have this beautiful mix of women on today. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing that, and I'm going to ask some questions. So I'm going to start with you first, Julia. Tell me about the opportunities and the challenges and the things that you're seeing from an agribusiness point of view.
Thanks, Lynn, and hello everybody who's on today. I'm not sure that we'll be able to live up to these introductions you gave us, Lynn, but we'll give it a red hot crack. One of the things I'm going to say from the beginning that is still a challenge in agribusiness and across regional areas is the internet. Mine keeps telling me it's unstable. I hope it's the internet and not me. It could be both. But I just want to flag that from the outset. Hopefully I don't get lost in this space. And I guess for me, I see challenges and opportunities bundled together. Where there is a challenge becomes a way for us to be able to work through it. And I think for a lot of the names that I know on this webinar today, we've got people who are actually working on solving the challenges that we've got. But a few I want to be able to throw onto the table early on is this constant challenge we have to be able to make sure that we can show that careers and a professional opportunity are available in rural and regional communities, whether that's agriculture or connected businesses, how we can make sure that we can really promote ourselves as being able to deliver quality work, being able to run professional and profitable businesses outside of metropolitan areas, I think is a really important thing. And so the underlying message for me is, how do we make sure that we as business women are prepared to tell our story and it not seem like an ego issue? Yeah. So one of the challenges I think is we have amazing things happening, and part of what we want to be able to do is pull the stories out of that and share it. Not necessarily because Julie is the most amazing person ever, but we want to be able to showcase the range of people we have in our communities so that others will then want to step in and do some work around this. So I guess for me, always this really positioning everything we do regionally as being really professional and being career focused, I think is really important. What that does then, if I can just raise one other challenge before we move on, the other challenge then is making sure that we are always planning and developing our businesses to be able to be sustainable. And so if we think about a lot of the farming families at the moment, you know, a few farming families have got to the size now where they're bringing in other people to their business who aren't family members and who are taking on some more senior roles. And so we've often seen succession planning in businesses as a family issue. It's actually becoming a bit of a community issue now. How do we make sure that people can move in and out of businesses and take on roles within businesses really clearly and succinctly when that's been very much used to a family model of doing business, and certainly some challenges there where the likes of Anne-Marie and Laurie are able to then support around some of the strategy piece. But I think there's so many opportunities in regional areas of Australia at the moment. We all need a lot of people.
Yeah, look, we're going to really love diving a bit deeper into some of those amazing issues and challenges, opportunities that you've just raised. What about you, Anne-Marie? I mean, you're coming from a different perspective, and you're seeing a lot of what's happening in the strategy space for agribusinesses. Well, what are the challenges, opportunities, and priorities that you see?
Thanks, Lynn, and yeah, thanks for that amazing introduction. I certainly think that actually taking the time, and it's just an ongoing issue with anyone in small business, is actually taking that time to step out of the working in the business to look at that strategic element that Julia talked about. And when people do it, it's profound, and it actually has amazing results. Because as humans, if we go and think strategically, and if we can cast our mind further than 5 years into the future, if we can go up to 10 even more, the results, it's hard work, but the results are really quite amazing. And if we can then lead that into some really good, clear goal setting, because as humans, we very naturally gravitate strongly towards goals if we set them. So the challenge, though, is actually taking the time to do that. And the terminology around succession planning is a little bit kind of one-dimensional for me. The challenge is actually to think more future planning, and that is that strategic lens, that is that getting out of working in to working on the business. That's always a challenge. And once people get involved in that, the people we work with, they're like, we should have started this, 2, 3, 4, 5 years earlier. Or so-and-so should be here, or why are more people not doing this? Because it takes that monkey off the back, and it can, everything at the moment in agriculture is really about building resilience in the business, in the people, and in industry. And that starts at that very small scale level with the actual business itself. In terms of other challenges, though, at the moment, we're really dealing with challenges around skilled workforce. And the reality is that's always been an issue in the agri sector. The key challenge at the moment is, and it's almost a weird positive, in that the spotlight's been shone on the need for skilled labour, and the fact that we have relied for so long on a import or, backpacker style workforce to top up the agri sector. So I think the spotlight's been shone on that, and we're actually talking about workforce and in the ag sector, and we've never used that language really comfortably in the workforce. We've never actually in agriculture. The challenge is to connect business growth, business sustainability, and long-term viability with the people that work in the business. And Julia touched on that. That's changing. It's not just about the family, it's other people that work in the business, it's creating different structures, and that all needs skill. It's not just the person who does what we might call the entry-level jobs, it's jobs all the way through from management jobs. So skilled workforce I see as a real challenge. I also see and Julia's right, the challenges all flip over into amazing opportunities. There's always a challenge with commodity markets and working within a commodity market versus a customised market, and getting the balance right and the return, because in a commodity market it's very much driven by that farm gate and ultimately mostly been a price taker. So the challenge is, how do we actually maybe work within a commodity market, but we look at making some value beyond that farm gate and creating a longer value chain where we cooperate and collaborate. So I think that requires new models and new structures and systems for how we work. And there are some great, amazing case studies where that is working really well. So that to me is a challenge, and that all requires different strategy, different business models. And I'm glad Leah Boucher's in the virtual room today, because people like Leah are really important to creating that change in how we navigate creating value or extracting value further down our value chain, because data and data management is absolutely essential for that. And it is one of those key agri-tech innovations, blockchain, Internet of Things, all of that. The challenge is, how do we make that work in the best possible way?
No, there's so many amazing points that you've raised there. So I'm going to really look forward to us deep diving into those things, Anne-Marie. I'm going to throw over to Laurie. So Laurie actually has a different perspective and sees things, at a more individual level. So what's coming up for you? What are you seeing in terms of the challenges and the opportunities and priorities from your perspective, Laurie?
It's so interesting, Lynn. You bring together the most amazing people, and we haven't had a chat before this call. So the fact that all three of us have very much got the same views, and I think the biggest thing that I've just pulled out from what Anne-Marie and Julia are talking about is that we often think that business needs to look a certain way, and it just doesn't. And what we do is that when we don't ask the questions, or we don't get in the right rooms with the right people, or find the networks that we need, is that we can self-limit our own dreams, but just because we believe it's not possible, or we believe it has to look a certain way. So and I know that for myself, in terms of like building your own business, but also when you're working for someone else's, and Anne-Marie, you talked about skilled labor, is that sometimes we have our own beliefs and opinions about other people that quite often can actually stop us from seeing them in a certain way. So when we're looking at ourselves, we see ourselves as something, but other people see us as different things, and we can often do that with other people. So I think we need to be making sure that we're not limiting our own beliefs, and that if we can see it, like we can see this future, what it looks like in 10 years time, is if we can see it, we can be it, we can create it. We just have to find those right support networks, and which kind of comes up with another challenge. And I live here in Esperance, and it can often feel quite isolating because I'm 700 kilometers away from the nearest city, but technology, COVID, has kind of shifted that to be able to enable us to still network and to still collaborate with people, even though we're and I think even the word isolation feels just isolating in itself. So making sure that we kind of don't use that term to keep us almost self-trapped in that place. And I think the third thing for me was, sometimes we don't ask for help. Like, we're so proud, sometimes maybe even stubborn. It's like this confident on the outside, but jelly on the inside. So again, it's that kind of self-limiting, those self-limiting beliefs that we put on ourselves. And I know one big thing that always comes up with the people that I work with is imposter syndrome. I am a recovering imposter syndrome addict, and especially in industries like male dominated with agriculture, I think that's changing. The face of that is changing, but there's still a lot of that vibe that kind of runs, that gentle stream that just runs underneath. And I think the more of us that can overcome our own limitations and start being in those, having these right support mechanisms, we'll no longer see them as boys' clubs. That'll be like, well, there's their club and there's our club. And it doesn't matter who's in it. They're the clubs that we want to be part of.
Brilliant. Look, I love the way that you're so honest, and I'm just sitting here relating so much to what you're saying too. That the things that get in the way of us stepping up, and me stepping up. My own journey is having to take on this leadership role with Business Women Australia. And the self-doubt and the imposter syndrome that can get in the way. And I think Julia touched on earlier, in terms of you know, coming from a country background, I think too, we're community is awesome, but it's also, if you're a bit of a tall poppy, you know, there's this sort of bit of this feeling that you're sort of stepping up and, you know, worrying about the one or two, you know, negative comments that might be thrown at you without thinking about the fact that 99% of the people are absolutely applauding and supporting you. You know, I get a lot of this kind of thing. So I'm going to throw back to Julia now. I think, Julia, from your point of view, what would you like to share with us around the sort of the key elements of growth strategies that that, you know, in the rural and regional areas that we can take advantage of as opportunities present themselves, whether it's in our local, our competitive market or international markets? What sort of, you know, what can you share with us around that?
Yes, thank you, Lynn. And I think what I want to be able to do today, I guess, is talk about some of the businesses that we see all across Australia. I might be slightly Queensland-centric, team, but there's some really great things happening nationally as well that I think really touch on where there's good work doing. So I'm about, let's shine the light on who's having a crack and try and build more of that into the industry. I really like Anne-Marie's point around, you know, the challenge around commodity based, or are we looking at different ways to be able to pull products through the value chain? And that's where I actually think there's a lot of advantage and opportunities moving forward. So if we think about the challenges that agriculture's had historically, and then look at how some businesses are doing some really good work. And so part of that is around actually marketing the people part of the business as much as the product that they're creating. And I'm thinking of Four Daughters Beef. I'm thinking of the work that Annabelle Coppin in Western Australia has done at Yarrie Station around Outback Beef. So there is a story about what it is that you're doing and what it is that you're eating and how your steak that you're having for dinner links to Annabelle's family and all of the work that she does in Northern WA. So I think this piece around marketing the people that are involved is incredibly important. Because people are wanting to connect more. We have more educated consumers, rightly or wrongly. Educated could be loose in some terms. No, we have people wanting to be more educated around what it is that they're eating and consuming, and we need to be able to provide that. So that's, I think, where we're starting to see some businesses take advantage of that because they're able to tell the story that they're telling. Annabelle's not putting all of her beef into Outback Beef. She's still probably selling some stuff, you know, from a commodity-based perspective, but just being able to start testing the thing around the, you know, the elements around that. I think there's lots of examples of individual businesses looking at how they can brand themselves. The flip of that I'm really loving is some of the work that Jane Bennett has done with Tas Foods, where we're getting this regional kind of food brand to it. And I think, again, COVID has been terrible for lots of things, but it's actually made a few of us at a regional level have a look around and say, well, hold on a second, we can actually pull a really good package together here. We do a good event. Within a few hours of Gundawindi, we can give you every meal of the day and some drinks afterwards, you know. So I think this regionalization of product, of experience, of food, of agritourism, of country feeling, I think that's going to be a real advantage to be able to have a look at, particularly while, as Australians, most of us are hanging out within Australia for the next little bit. I think the flip of that, or the advantage of that at a bigger scale, is really this piece around, you know, one of the things that we identified as a result of COVID is there's still a lot of what helps us run our businesses we import from overseas. And so there's a real opportunity around this manufacturing and how are we able to look at what is it from an ag tech perspective. What's the innovation that we've got in you know, that people are tinkering around with, and how can we actually get that happening? If now is really the time, I think, for some of this to really hit the ground running. And I think we're seeing that in how some of even the RDCs are looking, you know, GRDC stepping into sort of investment and innovation. That's very different from any of those models historically. We're looking at all of the RDCs supporting things like farmers to founders programs. You know, that's very different to what's going on. So I think there's some real excitement on the horizon for some of that sort of stuff. That's my phone, sorry.
Yeah, that's there's so much there in terms of the opportunities for us to be more self-reliant and less reliant on imports. I think that's a massive one. But I'd like to hear from Anne-Marie now in terms of, you know, what you're seeing are the growth strategies. What are the elements that would really help us take advantage of all these opportunities that are being presented in the market? Anne-Marie, what do you recommend?
You're muted, Anne-Marie.
That might help. Technology. That's what I was talking about, technology. One of the key things is that if we want to make change happen, we need to actually be ready for it. We need to actually be strategic, because if we're busy working in the business, opportunities come by, but we're not ready for them. And by ready, I mean we're in a position to actually accept that we can think differently and do things differently, as Laurie and Julia have very clearly articulated. And so that goes back to a key element to embrace opportunity and actually really deliver some growth in individual businesses across regions and across industries is about being strategic. So that does require the strategic thinking, requires a process for change, because it doesn't just happen. So we can either, have change thrust upon us, or we can actually own it and drive it. And the outcome is completely different if you have change thrust upon you versus if you're driving and leading the change that you want, because of that clear, as Laurie said, that clear more than 5 years, 10-year vision that you create. So that's one element of growth strategies and embracing and harnessing those opportunities. Another is to actually really build into that a research and development mindset. So actually building a culture of research and development at a business level, at a regional or local level, and also at industry sector level. And there's agriculture in Australia and globally is actually very well known for being leading edge in terms of research and development. Now, we think we're very good at this in Australia. On a global scale, we do lag. We're no Silicon Valley. We're no, those Middle East hotspots where they're doing absolutely staggering stuff in terms of research and development. But that starts with every business making an effort to really put a culture and a mindset of building that in. And I mean, we've added an element to our business offering because we've seen the need for this. So we've actually been supporting businesses to be successful in attracting the federal government's R&D tax incentive program. So that is a way of actually, bringing cash directly back into your business for genuine, approved research and development projects that your business does. And so that cash can come back into the business to fuel further research and development. And that actually can really drive that cutting edge of growth and development. And the third thing, that key element that I sort of thought about, that I see and that we do help people with because it's a challenge, and that is actually building in new business models to enable the opportunity to grab hold of these new way of doing business, as Julia was saying and Laurie was saying. And by that, I'm talking about aggregating supply. So one small farming business on their own versus the power of aggregating in a dedicated value chain, so that you can actually really create and really drive up farm gate price by being involved in a different business model, whether that's a cooperative or new businesses that become created, that actually can really establish some key parameters to drive growth through less variability, getting better margins for the members or the owners of that business, and creating more certainty for investors to come in as well. So that might be corporations. And one that comes to my mind is the Sweeter Banana Company. So I use the Sweeter Banana Company. I absolutely love their story. Their actual genesis came out of, we've got a waste product. small bananas, slightly marked, smaller than what the market want. What are we going to do with our small bananas? Well, actually, these bananas, they're quite sweet. They fit in your lunchbox. And let's think about packaging them differently. That fueled the start. And everyone at the time, and these are the important things to remember, everyone said, won't work. And there was just this list of things that people came up with why it won't work. No one's going to buy those tiny bananas. No one's going to buy bananas from Carnarvon. We want our bananas from Queensland. No one's going to buy a banana packaged in a plastic bag and bundled together as the Sweeter Banana Company. No one's going to buy, you're not going to get the farmers, the Carnarvon banana growers to cooperate. That's never going to happen. And look where they are now. So they just went through and ticked off all those myths. They created the power of, aggregating supply. Now, those producers still supply bananas in other markets, but my go-to is always this Carnarvon. I look for it. And that's that brand that Julia was talking about, really creating a regional brand, but with a global reach, really. And it's created a very different market for bananas. So I think we need to look at new business models where they are focused on, bringing returns back down the supply chain. So we've been working with new models rather than a supply chain. We're calling it a value circle, where the customer and the producer can see one another. Because in a chain, you can't see one another. So you've got the producer here and the customer here and all these bits in the middle. So we're saying, let's bring it together as a circle where they actually can participate and link and see one another. So focusing on what is driving global trends in food, demand, health, or ethical decisions around food, how we produce food, using water more efficiently, and creating models where we can promote that.
I love that story. And, being a mother of 4 children, I remember being so excited when those Sweeter Banana Company made it very easy for you to just grab bananas and throw them in the lunchbox. I can remember. And the story of that is just gorgeous. So that really does tie into the power of a brand, the story. You've brought in there the importance of cooperation, and not, in regional sense, collaboration, and being able to see something outside the box. The creativity in that process is pretty phenomenal. So, Laurie, I'd just like to throw back to you now to maybe, talk to us about, you do a lot of work with people in terms of overcoming mindset and sort of overcoming and getting rid of those stories. Anne-Marie talked about the myths that rattle around the place, that sort of become barriers and obstacles, because even though they're not real, they're almost taken as real. They might be in people's minds, they might be as a part of societal myths and stories. What do you recommend that agribusiness owners and families do to actually, sort of work with and managing stress and mindset, and looking at their importance of everything around them and the wholeness of themselves as humans going into the process of being business owners with those stresses?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? We do hold ourselves back because I think, we have these ideas and then we shut them down completely because we worry about what other people think. We worry about failure. And I think the biggest thing, and, I saw a meme on it the other day, fear, false evidence appearing real. Like those stories that, we might have grown up with, or we might just keep telling ourselves, or, we've evolved them over the years to, apparently they're there to protect ourselves, but really they're kind of keeping us playing safe. So I think the biggest thing for people to understand is if you've got an idea, is to give both of them equal airtime. So that, why I should and why I shouldn't, but also to I want to say play it bigger. So if you could ask yourself a question like, if nobody cared, I would, and then kind of go with all these ideas that you've got running around in your head. because I think when you allow yourself to dream a bit bigger, that's when, you know, the current circumstances that are happening for you, it's no longer like, oh, this is my life happening to me. This is me making my life happen, and this circumstance is here for a reason. Like, it's going to teach me a lesson. So if I want to still dream big, how can I use this lesson to fuel me, to help me take a step closer to that bigger dream? Because this lesson is here to teach me I, you know, need more support in this area. I need a bit more, you know, work with my mindset. I need to, you know, prioritize the bigger kind of things in my life versus the small, you know, when we get tied up in all the small stuff. So I think it's a good opportunity to kind of unravel some of these stories that we do tell ourselves. I think the biggest thing too is to have compassion for ourselves and for our people. So when we're managing stresses, is just knowing that we're all going through it in some form or another, and some of us definitely, you know, show face a bit better than others. But it's taking that time to talk to our people and to have those conversations, and sometimes to lean into those difficult ones. You know, that's a Brené Brown thing, where we have the courage and we lean into the difficult conversations with how people are going. How are you feeling? What's going on for you? Whether it's, you know, we're asking ourselves that, or whether we're asking our people or our networks, and just simply keeping those lines of communication open and making sure that you know, we're treating ourselves like we treat our customers. We're treating our team like we're treating our customers. It's a very old school kind of customer service rule, you know. Listen, like, the customer wants to know they're listened to and their needs are understood. They want to know that you're willing to, you know, you're willing to help, and they want you to respond to them like, you know, not in 10 days' time. They kind of need you now. And when we think about ourselves, like, am I listening to myself? Am I responding to myself as I need it now? Am I responding to my team as they need me now? And really using communication to get through what feels like a hard time. But the best thing is, ladies, we all know how to do hard things. We just have to remind ourselves sometimes that we can do them. Like, we have these 9-pound babies. We go through divorce. We might go through bankruptcy. Our businesses will fail. Like, all of this stuff, it's real life stuff, and it happens to everyone. So definitely compassion, and of course, get sleep. Get some sleep.
What's coming up for me as you're speaking is that, you know, I work a lot in corporate areas in the city with teams, you know, doing strategy and planning and big vision work, and quite often the top executives are getting coaches on the side, you know. And I've realised as I was talking that this is maybe kind of not necessarily something that's embraced in the regional rural areas. We have the amazing Anne-Maries and the Julias working on business strategy. Don't work in your business, work on your business. And quite often there might be the need, I think, also for that extra person on the side to be working with some of these leaders in these businesses, the owners, whether or not it's the originating business owner and founder, or the current one, and the new ones coming through, the younger generation in the succession plan, having the opportunity to realise the value of having an external coach. And they do a very different thing than your business strategy person. So it's quite an interesting thing. It just struck me then that it's probably, I mean, I was watching a show the other day on the ABC, the guys, you know, doing the Barbies, you know, the Barbies and bullshit stuff, the 5 Bs, and, you know, the just reconnecting with guys who were only 10 Ks down the road and hadn't seen each other for 10 years. And I was like, wow, you know, there's so much isolation and so much doing it and getting on and doing it yourself that comes out of being a country person, that this concept of having help and calling on the Anne-Maries, the Julias to help us with our strategy, the Lauries of the world that are out there as our coaches helping with our mindset, that it's actually okay. It's not a sign of weakness. I mean, I'm working with some of WA's top executives in their strategy, and they'll ask me, who's a good coach? Who's a great executive coach? So, look, this is an interesting another thing that I hadn't really thought about, but obviously subconsciously pulling this group of people together for this agribusiness webinar has just this is what I'm seeing. It's what we need to be pushing out as a message, that it's actually okay. Bring in the experts, bring in the sounding boards, bring in all the help you need, because for us to actually start hitting and rising above and not being second rate and getting on with the R&D and being up there heavy hitters like the rest of the world, we've got this. As a country, we should be leading in every aspect, but we don't have to do it ourselves. Our top athletes, look at them in the Olympics. They can't do it without a coach. They can't do it without their team, without their strategists. They've got a whole mob. Okay, Julia, what's coming up for you?
Well, actually, I mean, you've got somebody on this call, Steph Schmidt. So I'm going to just give Steph a little shout out at this point. I mean, I obviously had mental health and us getting better at talking about this more openly is one of the challenges broadly across agribusiness, which is really, what you're talking about at the moment. And I actually think there's some fantastic programs out. I listed a few. There's some great work that Mary O'Brien's doing around Are You Bogged, Mate? But just making some of these conversations more available. It doesn't go as far as the coaching side of things, but Steph, who's on the call at the moment, is the 2020 South Australia AgriFutures Woman of the Year, and her program is exactly what we're talking about now. So Steph, hopefully I've got this right, that it's still what you're working on, but Act for Ag around bringing psychological skills to regional communities in ways that is an appetite that people can handle, and bringing this skill set, because you're right, Lynn, in the sense that this is not a skill set that we've often grown up around. It wasn't something that was necessarily spoken about. Hello, Steph. I've really dubbed you in here.
Hi.
But I think
that's all good.
But I think this is something that is starting to get more of a presence.
Up of this guy. So, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting that you're on this call as this conversation comes up. I'm happy to throw back to you, Lynn.
And I've asked Steph to unmute, because I'd love Steph to actually just give us, for the moment that we're happy there in the high chair, can you share with us a little bit about that too while we've got you on the call?
Yeah, definitely. I had to jump in and listen while I was driving in the car because he's got a temperature, so I had to pick him up early from childcare. But as always, they come home and are perfectly happy. But yeah, so my project is exactly as Julia described, really about getting the skills, and it is starting to become more and more about the people and the communication skills, and I guess building the mental health side, but from the ground up, combining what I've learned as a psychologist, but also as I run a farm with my husband as well. So I'm very much agree with everything you guys have said so far, that there is this need, and I think this gap in agribusiness, which for so long it's been that it's a family farm, we just kind of run it as this family structure. But now recognising, I think it's really quite unique challenges that some of the businesses, they're big businesses, and even like for ourselves, like, oh, hang on, we're running a big business, but we don't run it necessarily like a business. But then you're also managing those dual relationships, really, of a marriage or a family structure, or bringing employees in there. So I've got a kind of really trying to make it as accessible as possible. So got kind of even just like old school with a handbook and a notepad of this framework, which people are finding really helpful just for like kind of opening up the conversations. I was chatting to a participant from my June course, and she said, she had her stuff sitting on the table and found her husband had actually come in and started working through it to work through why he was getting so frustrated in the sheep yards. And I'm like, that's it. That's why I want it happening. So.
Oh, that's brilliant, and well done. How amazing. Make sure you keep us in the loop and share with us your journey as it goes. It's going to make such an incredible difference. Thanks, Steph. I'm going to throw over to Anne-Marie now. And although it sounds like we might have some additional commentary in the background there. I love that. Anne-Marie, risks. What are the risks that can be more effectively managed that you're seeing?
Look, I think for primary producers, there's always big risks around, rising costs, all of the seasonal variability, varying yields, although despite seasonal variability, Australian farmers, West Australian farmers in particular, are very good at maintaining yields even with seasonal variability. So we're doing some stuff really, really well. But a risk is how do we navigate fluctuating price? And that goes back to what we were talking about with extending our reach down from away from the farm gate and down that value chain to help manage risk more efficiently and effectively. But there's some real local things, and I'm conscious, Lynn, that one of the things you wanted was some real practical elements for someone in a business wondering what they can do practically. And these are all the sorts of things that when you're doing someone's strategy and you're looking for those 1%ers, if we go and look for all the 1%ers to manage our risk, we can have a profound impact on our bottom line, our net profit, which is what we're craving and are seeking. We're not in business just to make operational surplus. We need to head to net profit. And, we can do bulk orders to help reduce, the cost of things. So we can collaborate locally at a local level. And this is happening everywhere. It's not new. The thing is, not everyone is doing it. So we need to get a lot of the cluster of farmers that are not quite in that top 25%, we need to gear them up so they can shift into the top 25% of businesses, because those top 25% of businesses do something right. They manage risk better. They make better decisions in seasons and during the season, throughout the decision-making time in agribusiness, which varies depending on the sector you're in. So we need to do things, and they're the tactics, the critical decisions that we make in season. So we need to have a rule book for that. So that helps to manage risk. And it means we're not making those really critical in-season tactical decisions when stress is at the highest. So that time of the year when it's all on the line, when you're making really critical decisions. So you want your rule book that defines and guides how you make those critical tactical decisions. You need it done before. So you have that ready. And that's based on, some of the triggers and the known things in your region, that if you do this now, there's the result. If you don't do this now, what's the result? So it's about really arming yourself with a range of, tactical decisions that you can play ahead. So the stress of the decision-making is not there, because you've already gone through the process for defining that. It's based on averages, and average in this regard is good. Average is not bad. Average is good. It just means we factor in for an average. How can we get our average? Because we do our budget and then we measure it. So these are all things that we can do to actually manage risk. So they're very tangible, practical things, and people think, well, I can't manage the risk of it not raining. You can't manage it not raining. You can manage your risk for how you respond to the season as it plays out. So you can, I know people, my brother, one of them, and he monitors buoys in the ocean. He monitors about 20 different global weather sites to get a handle on what is happening with current patterns of rainfall, potential for rainfall, to make decisions further out. And then he obviously gets closer to the decision point. He's got more information. So there are all sorts of things that you can do. And the other thing that we can do, which is not just about that in-seasonal thing, but it helps when we get it up, and that is looking at opportunities for diversification. So diversification provides a real way of managing risk through seasons and across seasons as well, because you're putting different product into different markets at different times, and you're attracting different prices. So at the moment, things like canola price is way up, but what happens next year? Canola drops, but we need all sorts of opportunities. Grain or any sector, you need opportunities of market. So that requires some diversification. I also think a key element of managing risk is to start to build up a war chest. So it may seem like a really practical, obvious thing, but a lot of businesses don't actually have a cash reserve. They don't actually have a war chest to deal with those poor seasons or those real hard periods that may go longer than 1 year. So actually developing some business resilience at that financial level, which actually is about creating, it might be off-farm assets as well, but building wealth and a strong balance sheet. So really getting some knowledge around how do I actually build a strong balance sheet, for example? What do I need to do? So I think there's some very practical examples of managing risk there, but there's also some more industry-wide elements to managing. The last one that I wanted to touch on, Lynn, is actually, and it comes to Laurie's point really well as also, and that is actually be involved, be engaged, be connected, be a leader in your industry, get on boards, participate in committees, be a really engaged, involved participant in your industry and your sector. It is a powerful way of managing risk because you are actually looking always outward and not just at the barriers that are right in front of you and your daily operation. So get connected, be involved, and be that leader. Stand up and be that person.
I love listening to you, Anne-Marie. Been missing you. I really have. Your ability to chunk down such incredible strategic process thinking into such practical elements is really inspiring, and I just it just goes to show, how what a master of this subject area you are. So it's just incredible. And, you're touching then on some great ideas around being less vulnerable to seasons and price fluctuations. And I think that, that combined with ideas around joining forces and then combining Julia's concept of strengthening the brand and the brand story behind that, the people aspect of the story. So there's a much more connection with the brand and the purchase decision-making cycle, then takes less reliance on the price. You have more control when you build demand for a niche product or a value-added product. And, it's absolute rational sense. It's not hard to understand that it's a very strategic thing that so many people just don't follow, that rule of thumb. Okay, that is brilliant. I'd like to throw it back to Julia now. This is a lot around differentiation. We've touched quite a lot on some key elements of differentiating. How else can businesses differentiate themselves in their ideal markets, Julia?
Yeah, so I think we've sort of talked about how people can bring their story to themselves, to some of the marketing. I think the other thing we're starting to see more of, and Anne-Marie touched on it as well, is so the people in the business and also then the processes in the business. So we are looking at regenerative agriculture principles, or we use a mixture of holistic management, good land management. This is our combination of processes. So this piece around transparency of what people are buying and what they're buying into, again, we can start to see those businesses that are actually trying to help people understand what is going on, I think is really important. So here's our animal welfare, here's our certifications. We're going to start using language that other people understand as well. We're talking about United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We're using language that other sectors and industries use, and we're bringing that into some of the language that we look at. And I think that's where some people are really taking advantage of that. And the comment around how Australia is seen globally has already been mentioned. So I think that's really important. I think it is also really lovely that there's some other sectors and elements that are coming in, and this is not, there's been a real explosion around the more mainstream look at some of our native and Indigenous products, looking at how that becomes, and it doesn't hurt that, a master chef or a My Kitchen Rules or somebody or other has that as part of their promotion. So I think, there's still industries across our regions that have got a long way to go. And I think that's really, really exciting. So I guess that's some of the ways that we're starting to see, people really start to differentiate themselves. But the other piece, and it was spoken about before, and Anne-Marie used the word aggregate, and I think that's a really good one, and I need to start using that instead, because collaboration sometimes just seems a bit, we've used that a lot. I've written a lot of grants with the word collaborate in it. I need to find a new one. But I think this piece around how do we start to do business, differently, and this collaboration is not necessarily what we mean, but this how do we actually aggregate and pull some different elements together and support each other. So as somebody with a business in the main street of town, and Shannon is at the other end of the street for me, I need her business to do well for my business to do well, and vice versa, so I think this piece around us actually understanding there is no competition in regional areas. We are not competing with each other. We are competing with New Zealand, or we're competing with Southeast Asia. So I think we've been able to build this concept of how we can sort of differentiate what we do, because I'm not actually competing with anybody else in my own community. That's not something that we need to think about. And I think that's quite a traditional mindset, and something that we need to be able to work through. So looking at what's the processes that we're using as much as anything else, I think is really going to help start differentiating what it is. People want to know what's happening behind the curtain.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that point that you've just raised there about regional businesses, that we are actually not in competition with each other. And I've come across this phrase that I've been hearing about, co-opetition, where competitors are all working collaboratively. There's another word for you, Julia, to use in your grants. It's a great word, co-opetition. And we're looking at it from a business women's collaboration point of view. We're actually joining forces with Economy, with Mums & Co, with all the other leading brands that are in niche areas around women and women's success in work and business life. And we're really starting now to look at how are we strategically going to join forces so that we become amazing, supportive in each other's areas. So we're not competing, we're actually working together. And I think that that's a really great message for rural and regional areas. This is absolutely totally relevant for regional areas, probably more so even than urban. But certainly I look at our Angove Street area. We have the Angove Street Collective, and they all work together. There's probably 3 or 4 coffee shops that are on the one street. It's a very small strip in North Perth. It's very trendy, but they all work together about building momentum around North Perth. Let's bring people to North Perth, as opposed to, Leederville, who also has a coffee shop strip, or Mount Lawley that also has a coffee shop strip. They're all working together. And I love that idea of co-opetition. I'm going to throw over to Laurie now. Just I'd like to hear about your thoughts around business development. You come from a business development background. I mean, that's your expertise, is actually in business development and sales. And how important are those skills from your point of view? And what advice do you have for teams and individuals who need to develop those kind of business development and sales skills?
Never really realised I was good at sales for many, many years, like hello imposter. So I think the key thing both skills are super important. And once you learn how to kind of nail them once or twice, it's a skill base that you're going to have forever. You'll literally be able to sell anything and develop business. And so interesting, like what you said before, Lynn, about, asking for help and getting a coach, is that people often won't ask for a coach because they think, oh, I don't that means I need fixing, I'm broken. But in actual fact, like Ash Barty got a coach not because she had a terrible swing, or she thought she had a terrible swing. She got a coach because he just amplified the potential that she did have. And so I have a coach. I have two. I have my own sales coach. So a sales coach who has a sales coach. I help people make money. So I have a money coach, and then I have a life coach. So I have all these coaches around me. And what I've really found is that, they teach me lots of different things, and they help me become secure and more confident and more successful in myself, and not need all this kind of external validation around, I'm selling this product, and if someone says no, what do I make that mean? So it's really about learning how to take those no's and not make it mean anything about you, and to just keep going, like to really learn how to flex that resilience muscle, because we do know how to do hard things, and to get up and go and do it again. The old saying, yes lives in the land of no's. So, we've got to go get 100 no's. And when we just kind of see business development as we're just planting seeds, kind of a pun intended kind of saying with agribusiness. But, when you plant seeds, you just have to nurture them, and you can just throw a whole lot of seeds out, and you have no idea where that business is going to come from. And it's like, if you think about business development, it's a little bit like that, probably a little bit more strategic, but getting into those rooms where you can throw seeds with different people, meeting people and telling them about what you do, knowing what value exchange you have to give, like, here's an idea, I'll swap you one, or here's some money, or here's a product, I'll swap you for some money. And really seeing in both business development and sales is relationships. It's all about relationships. It's all about the people you meet. And the only way we can do that is to really like what is limiting us is probably just our own thoughts. Why aren't we in those rooms? Why aren't we speaking up? Why aren't we like screaming from the rooftop these amazing things we're doing? And it really is around that, getting that coach to help flesh that stuff out so that you can bask in your amazingness, because we all have it. We've all got seeds of greatness that we just need to plant a few more and just keep nurturing them. So so that's personally for me what I think business development is, and sales skills, and how you don't think you've got them, but you do. You're selling stuff every day. You're selling to your kids to go clean their room. You're selling your husband the fact that you're having chicken tonight. We sell every day. We just need to not make it such a big thing. We're just getting people to say yes to themselves, and we're just nurturing those relationships.
Yeah, I love that. It's all about the relationship, and it's about having the patience, like you say, putting the seeds out there, and then keep nurturing them. It's the patience. It's not going to be a quick turnaround. It's very rare. I was talking to a gorgeous regional businesswoman this week, and she put a lot of effort into a massive launch campaign. It was beautifully executed, and she said, I've had one sign up. And I was like, hey, that's great. Have you celebrated that sign up? And now what's happening? What are you doing now? It's going to take a constant repeat, tweak, move forward, step forward. It doesn't just start with one launch. It starts with one launch, but it doesn't finish with that. And I think that this belief that it's about, it's almost that concept of if we build something, it will come. That stops us from realizing that it's a constant growth, constant development, constant reaching out, a constant testing, trialing, moving, talking to these groups, talking to that, to really identify that ideal client that is actually going to then still require all those nurturing, but giving time to explore and discover and tweak your product or your service, whatever it might be, is really a part of that very important research and development phase. And it doesn't always involve a research and development around a tech or an innovation. It might be research and development around where that ideal match is. What is the actual problem that you're solving? Is the problem big enough for the market that's lucrative enough to warrant further attention, further expansion? Or have you identified that the original thought around a problem that you're solving is maybe not as big or lucrative market, but you've uncovered something else in between? I love that this concept of seeds, throwing seeds, and in any business strategy, that is a really important part, is always having an element of your business that you're actually got that trial going on around new markets. And Anne-Marie talked about it earlier on, I think. Anne-Marie, in terms of differentiating, what are the thoughts that you've got for us?
Yeah, I think one of the things that really is needed to help start driving, differentiation, because we obviously have, at a global level, Australia has an amazing reputation. We have this global reputation around being clean and green, and it's real. It's not made up. It is actually a real standout that Australia leverages off, and we can do more. I think one of the ways that we need to start doing more is to actually gather data to back up the actual, it's not just a myth that we're clean and green. It's not just a myth that some of our products are more nutritious, produced more viably, produced more sustainably than some other supply areas. So one small example that Australia has an amazing position in, and is actually doing this, is our wheat competes with some other key supply areas, namely the Black Sea and Argentina. But our wheat is often more expensive on a global market. So compared to Black Sea wheat, for example, yet those customers that buy from the Black Sea or from Argentina would actually prefer Australian wheat, but they gravitate to the lowest price. So there's real innovation and input around differentiating to actually understand how we can sell the data behind why we are different. Why is the wheat grown in Western Australia or in New South Wales, why is it superior, and why can it command a premium price? And so it's really filling that. Yes, we're clean and green and we've got great product, but it's actually driving it with a real data, a real science, a real metric. And that's happening. That's happening now. That research into why our wheat is better for making noodles. So it's higher in protein. It produces noodles that are firmer. It produces the best colour for noodles. It has the best milling performance. It produces the right flour for the right product into that market. So actually, and coming up with some quantifiable metrics that back that up. So that goes back to earlier questions around how do we manage risk. Great way of managing risk, because we've increased the price. We don't have to do anything else to yield, to production, to anything else. We're increasing our price. I mean, we do have to obviously deliver that. And the challenge there, and it comes back to touching on what people like Leah Boucher are really exploring, is how do we use technology to link someone who might be in a market in Asia who wants a certain wheat grown to a certain standard of protein, of firmness, of noodle quality. How do they get that guaranteed? And that's where technology like blockchain, all those sorts of things can start to play. And it really can help set up a differentiation. It can actually sell the story and trace the story right back from someone pushing a supermarket trolley in Japan who wants a particular noodle, scan it, it can link back to where it was produced in Western Australia. That sort of connection, so it's no longer a linear thing. It's a relationship, to go back to Laurie's key point as well. Without even meeting them, we can now form relationships and this might sound pie in the sky. It's not. It's happening. And the thing with the future and thinking for the future is that things like this are already happening. They're just not widespread yet. They're not mainstream yet, but they're out there. And we just have to have the mindset and the strategy to actually embrace them and bring them in. And that's where all those other things we've talked about, being connected to your industry, participating in it, can really help. Creating traceability can really drive differentiating a product. And just in terms of brand and differentiating, let's think about something as local as the chia company or the 3 farmers who started in the WA wheat belt and wanted to diversify, wanted to manage their risks, all the things we've talked about, and, you know, looked at quinoa, and then we've got the chia company as well, all came from 3 farmers.
While I've, I'm getting a bit of repeat here, but while I've got Leah Boucher on, can we hear a little bit about your work there? So Anne-Marie's referenced you twice in this call, so I'm dying to hear a little bit more about what your initiative is.
Well, thank you. And Anne-Marie, I think it excites me when Anne-Marie starts talking about this sort of thing, because it's I think that, you know, blockchain has been around for a while now, but its applications are quite limited. But the potential is vast, especially for things like provenance and that direct relationship with clients, building those direct relationships, and then being able to satisfy and prove where things have come from. So there's a lot of, you know, there's over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of questions raised about how much of, say, for example, what meat goes to China that is, once it's in China, is claimed to be Australian, is actually Australian. So I think Pricewaterhouse did a study at one point back in 2019 that estimated that every second kilo that was claimed to be Australian wasn't. So, you know, it's if Australian beef, for example, or wheat or whatever the product may be, if that is a premium product, then obviously people will try to rip that off, but finding ways to prove that this is the real deal, that your product is the real thing, and it has a carbon footprint of such, and it is used sustainably or organically, grown organically, or all those you know, niche market provenance issues. They can be recorded, so you can have your data going into something like a blockchain. So if you've got, you know, I started working with Belinda before lockdowns, Belinda Lay, from the year that we were together in the AgriFutures Rural Women's Award, and she's gone ahead great guns with her project. Because we were locked out of Esperance, I didn't get to participate as much as I wanted to in the actual implementation of that. But she's collecting data. That data can be visible via the blockchain. So if you have a client that you are specifically growing for to their specifications, they can access cameras on your fields. They can look at the data of you know, fertilizers or chemicals that have gone into the production or not into the production. They could see what's going on right from, you know, paddock to the gate. So, and then further down the distribution chain. And that's part of the problem that I sort of came across delving deeper into this, is that here in WA you have you can get provenance to the gate, not easily yet, but the technologies exist for that. But then once they go from there to the lots, they're kind of aggregated, so you lose the ability to track. Once the sheep or the beef or whatever it is sold on, it then goes into a bigger lot, and then, you know, or on to processing. So I know that Nicola has a special deal with her abattoir, where her beef is kept separate from all the rest. So, and that's allowed her to really drill down into and market her brand, because she can keep her beef separate. So there's a lot of things within the food chain, within the supply chain, that are blocking that provenance tracking. But I think they're all overcome. Like they will all be overcome once that becomes what consumers are demanding. And I think that will become more and more loud as we go along.
Wow, that's like amazing, because, you know, from a consumer's point of view, and there's so many issues around health and well-being now. There's so many allergies. There's so many other requirements around ethical considerations and people's choices around what they want to consume, you know, according to their own value system or their own health challenges. And consumers are going to start demanding more and more of this information. It's only going to take a few premium brands who are sitting at the top of those value pyramids, who are actually getting the premium prices that'll be setting a benchmark for what is going to be expected by even then the middle level brands. So they'll be having a first mover advantage. And Amber and I love talking about this kind of stuff, because, you know, first mover advantages for premium brands who then can dictate the pricing for a niche market and really start driving the changes that the world wants to see. Actually, if we can be a part of that as powerful women and influencing the wonderful men that we work with to understand the importance of these strategic elements, I think that that's really powerful. So what an incredible conversation today, ladies. I have, as always, learnt so much. I am so privileged to have Julia Spicer, Anne-Marie O'Callaghan, Laurie Arnold, and the wonderful contributions that we've had from Steph and Leah. Fantastic to have this awesome sort of brains trust. This has actually been recorded. It will go out on our YouTube channels. It will go on our website. It will be shared across our social media channels as well. This is probably given, I'd say, it's given the drum a bit of a run for its money. And certainly, you know, when I sort of get the genius and intelligence and experiences and insights of women like you ladies on a Business Women Australia community webinar, it makes me realise how important it is to get, you know, mass communications to actually get you ladies on the shows, on their shows too, because this is the sort of messaging that we need to be putting out there to get Australian businesses, rural, regional, remote and urban, to step up and be the leaders in the world that we can be, because we've got the intelligence, we've got the produce, we've got the talent, we've got the opportunity. If we can start using some of the opportunities around technology in terms of automation, we can be processing so much more and owning more of that end to end from the farm right to the plate or into the homes or into the corporates in terms of final product. I mean, we would be able to demand absolute top-end premium pricing for everything that we're producing and change the way the world does things. So thank you so much for all your time, your intelligence. Final words, Julia, what would you like to leave us with?
Thank you. I think for me, it's about telling stories. So what are the stories you're hearing about your businesses, about people in your communities, about yourselves, and how can you do that? Because that is actually what will help move the whole community forward. It's not a individual ego piece of it. So tell the stories of the great things that are happening.
Step up, be the storytellers that we need to be. It's okay if you're the key character. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be perfect. Anne-Marie O'Callaghan, final words. Oh, we've got to get you off that mute.
Yeah, final word would really be to make change before it's too late and to drive that through your own strategy and, you know, strategic renewal, so that you're creating transformation and you're leading and driving the change that you want.
Awesome. That's so inspiring. And Laurie Arnold, final words for our whole webinar. I'll let you wrap it up.
Awesome. My final words would be curious in relationships and to have fun in selling and in business.
Awesome. I love it. You know me, that's my number one value. If it's not fun, I'm not doing it. Okay, ladies, thank you so much for your time and effort today. We say goodbye and we'll look forward to seeing you all online in our next online show or wherever we might be face to face, but keep sharing what you're doing in our LinkedIn group. It's free for everyone it's a bit of a notice board. Everyone's in there promoting what they're doing, but they're all scrolling through. We're getting a lot of impressions, a lot of eyes on those scrolls. I'd love to see some more conversation in that LinkedIn group. but it's okay if it's a notice board for now. So great to have you on board. Have an awesome weekend when you get there. It's Thursday already, Friday, weekends. I know in the rural and regional areas it's work all the time, but take Laurie's advice. Spend some time looking after you. And Anne-Marie's, spend some time working on the business, not just in the business. And Julia, step up. She says, step up and tell your stories. We want to hear them.